Hey, tonight I'm just going to talk real quick about putting weight in your race car and where that weight is placed, how it determines how much it actually adds to the rear percentage, and we'll go over quickly how to calculate rear percentage and what some of these numbers mean. So, to start with, these are actual numbers. Some of them have been slightly rounded to make calculation easier for this, but this is actual basically numbers that we scaled a car here this week. I didn't just make it up off the top of my head. So baseline, this car was 2,600 pounds, 1,300 front, 1,300 rear, which comes out to 13 divided by 26, 50% of the weight was on the rear. So the 50% rear percentage. 0 pounds added, that's how much weight we would add. We didn't add any. 0 pounds, or the pounds realized, that's how much the weight we added actually put to the rear, and there's no ratio because we haven't added any. So normally when people see this, they get this and they say, all right, this is my baseline, and to gather how much weight I need to get this certain rear percentage, they just add it to it, right? So say they say we need 300 pounds. So they put 300 pounds on the rear, and they say it's going to be 1,600, and the front's going to remain 1,300, which gives them 2,900 total. To put them at a 55% rear percentage, they've added 300 pounds, but they didn't grab any of this, right? So if you're putting weight like on your axle or near the center of the car or something, maybe, but for the most part, this number is going to be off, because as you put weight on the back of the car, it's going to take some weight from the front of the car, right? It shares it all suspension wise. Like I said, this is numbers that we did this week. It's not going to be exactly the same for your car. It depends drastically. So like an inch of the weight further out, right? If your bumper's 33 feet, say yours is 3 feet out, and we got a wagon in here that's 4 feet from the center of the axle to the back of the rear bumper. 100 pounds on 3 foot versus 100 pounds on 4 foot after the axle is going to be completely different. So you wouldn't need 300 pounds to get to that 55% rear percentage. So in this case, we put 130 pounds on the dead back of the bumper, right? So if you got the car, I'm not an artist, right? And this is the front. This is the rear. We put the weight right here, all the way at the back, at the bumper, which is legal because it was actually in the bumper, the stock bumper. So we put 130 pounds on the back. That changed it from 2,600 to 2,730, right? 130 pounds. But the percentages were different. So 1,300 to 1,475. So that 130 pounds added 175 pounds of weight to the rear percentage of the car. So it took away 45 pounds from the front. The front went from 1,300 to 1,255. Like I said, this is just this example. A lot of this has to do with the way the suspension is set up. A radial car might be different with tighter front end. This happened to be a car on the street, so it's pretty loose on the front end. But every 130 pounds we got 175. So if you put 300 back there, this is the ratio that we got, right? 1.35. So for every 1 pound at where we put it on this specific car with this specific suspension, we got 1.35 pounds realized weight on the back. Now you can't take this and just add it to this, right? You can't say, all right, well, for every 300, I've got 1.35 on the back, because the more you add, they're just going to keep changing that suspension number on the front. Right, like the front, maybe the front's maxed out. It's not pulling it as much anymore. Maybe it was full loose the first time. It's going to change it a little bit, but it's a good like baseline of this is around about where it is on the car right there. Next, we took 55 pounds right here and added dead over the axle. So right there, where we put it. Now a lot of people put it on the axle. You put it down here on the axle. That's even better probably. In most cases, because it stays with the car regardless of what the chassis is doing or what the body's doing. So we put 55 pounds right above the axle. We went from 2730 to 2785. That net us 57 pounds, right? So it took 2 pounds off the front. So it took weight from the front just putting it on the axle. But that's the difference between here and here. This was a 1.3 ratio. This was a 1.35. So it would be a sliding scale in between there. There's going to be a center of the car, and there's going to be a place in the car where if you add a pound, it just distributes it, right? It's going to be half a pound on the front, half a pound on the rear. So anything past that is going to start climbing the other way. Anything on the front is going to start taking off the rear percentage. As long as you grasp that kind of simple concept with it, it's very easy to understand. If you got a set of scales, it's a lot easier because you can sit here and play with the weight and get it exactly where you want it. But typically, like on these street cars and no prep cars, the further back we can get the weight, the better. It really helps them work, and it's less weight you have to add. So if you would put 300 pounds on the back, I mean, you would probably be around a 57 something percent rear weight, which would probably work really good, probably wheelie a lot. But if you got any questions with it, if I didn't explain anything well, if I messed something up and said something wrong, don't get offended. Just shoot me a message. We'll get it squared up. And if you got any questions with your setup, we can help you. Just give me a call. All right, thank you.